Yep, I'm in Act 3. This is just me being me. I hope you'll see God's not through with us yet.
Hey everybody, welcome back. Before I began to do this podcast, I thought I need to go brush my teeth and put on perfume. Why do I need to do those two things when you're not even sitting in here with me? I'm telling you, this is not pretty and it's going to get worse, and I know it will get worse. So I may be committed before all this is over, maybe Rodney, but I don't think Rodney will be here. I think he has booked an open-ended ticket with Delta because none of these have aired yet, and I think he's in preparation when the first one comes on the air on YouTube, that he will be long gone. I won't know when he's coming back because he didn't put a return date on his ticket. Okay, now that that's out, I basically finished, I think, on the last podcast talking about Graceland, Linda, and all that. I know you all think I've had no life if it hadn't been for Linda. And I will share that I did text her not long ago as I was preparing for all of this. And I said, you know what, during my formative years, you really provided some great memories, and I am very grateful to you for doing that. I have never been around Elvis. I was on the peripheral visiting with Linda and being with her, but I did have the opportunity one time. It was Linda's birthday in May, and she decided to have a birthday party in the house where I had stayed that summer. Elvis came, and I think he got off the Graceland property. I think his cousin put him in the back of a truck and threw a tarp over him to get him over there. But that was my first experience and my only experience of being around him at that birthday party, which was really quite interesting to hear his music being played and sit there and look at him as well. It was pretty surreal. But by this time, Linda was spreading her wings and going into the world of acting. And she was on the cast of Hee Haw. If you all are in my generation, you remember Hee Haw. It was that great show that was on usually Saturday nights, and it was taped in Nashville. So she would ask me to come up and watch them tape, and I would teach, and then I would go up to Nashville. A good friend of hers who was also on the cast, another beautiful woman at the time named Marianne Gordon, soon to be Marianne Rogers, came over to me and she said, I want you to meet my boyfriend. I said, great. So he came up, great guy. It was Kenny Rogers. And he had, I think, just left the first edition, and his his breakout song, like I'm in the world of music, like I know all these terminology. But anyway, Lucille had not come out yet, but we really struck up a friendly chord, and he and Marianne sent me a huge, absolutely fabulous floral arrangement for my birthday that year. And then they called and they said, why don't you come to LA? We'll pay for everything, and you can fly to Lake Tahoe with us, and I'm going to perform at a casino there. And I thought, well, yeah. I said, I'd love to do that. So I went, stayed at their fabulous home. I know they had a huge koi pond in the back, and I remember a florist going through their home and putting out fresh flowers in Bel Air. It was really quite lovely. He had a Learjet. Yeah, I know y'all are thinking, this woman, really, this is ridiculous. Let me just say, I have been blessed to have been on 2 Learjets. I haven't been on a Learjet since then. I'll never be on another Learjet. But anywho, we did go. It was Kenny's manager, and it was Linda and Marianne and I. So we check into a casino hotel, a big one there in Tahoe, where Kenny's going to perform. And opening the act for him is Steve Martin. So I had never been in a casino. I'm in my 20s, and I'd never been exposed to that. And Kenny gave me money, and he said, go down there and try something. Well, I did. And the house always wins, they say. That's why you have these fabulous hotels in Las Vegas, because they've made some money somewhere, and it's usually off people like me. So came back upstairs and just fooling around. He goes, what's going on? And I said, I'm so sorry. He goes, the money's gone, isn't it? I said, yeah, it is pretty much. And he goes, here, take another 50, go back downstairs. So I did. I still didn't win anything. So I came back up, and, all was fine, and went to his show that night and with Steve and Kenny, and it was great, and flew back to LA. And then maybe I stayed another day or so, and then I flew back to Memphis. But we stayed in touch with Kenny. And he was coming into Memphis to perform. I think it was a sold out arena performance with Dottie West. If you all in the world of country music remember her, he was performing with Dottie. And we were going to have dinner with Kenny that night. So we came into the arena late because it was with Linda and people knew Linda. And she pulled out a sheet of paper and she was writing something on it. And I said, "What are you doing?" And she said, "Well, I'm writing a message to him because we got here late to let him know we're here and we'll meet him for dinner." I said, "Oh, okay." And she goes, "Here." I said, "Here what?" She said, "Here's the note." I said, "Okay." And she goes, "You've got to take it to the stage." I said, I'm not doing that." She said, "You're going to have to do that." She said, "You think I can go up there?" I said, "No." She goes, "Well, go on." Oh, I thought, good grief. So here I am, my little suit from teaching and my little kitten heels. Now, why I wore heels when I was already 6'3", I don't know. But anyway, well, about this time, people are gathered around the stage and trying to get Kenny's attention. And these big burly security guards are around the stage and they're telling people to go sit down. And I thought, this is not going to be good. I know it isn't, but I had to keep walking. So I did and got up near the stage and I felt this, huh. And I turned around and this guy goes, "You got to go sit down." And of course, you know what I said. I said, "Yeah, but I know him." He said, yeah, right, sure, sit down. So about this time, I reach up and I kind of, put the note up there. Kenny reaches over and gets the note. And I thought, okay. So I start walking back to my seat. I have no idea what Kenny is doing. He is reading the note. He wads the note up and throws it across the stage. And he says, "Honey, I don't go in for that kind of stuff." Oh, well, you can imagine I had not reached my seat yet. This little spotlight, people are looking up and staring at me, thinking you are probably gutter trash. I am so mortified and humiliated. I slumped down in my seat and I looked at Linda and I said, "I'm going to lose my teacher certificate." And she said, "I'm really sorry, Missy." I said, "Yeah, I'm sure." Well, you can imagine that night at dinner, he was just howling. He thought that was the funniest thing he'd ever seen. So I thought, yeah, really. So it was great. I mean, he was great, great, approachable, wonderful entertainer friend. And we did go back out and see him. Rodney and I did at a later time and had a great time seeing Linda. And that's when we had a chance to meet Lionel Richie. So I've got pictures with him, but I'll talk about that later. But let me ask any of you all, since Rodney's still not home and I have a few minutes, are any of you all married to only children like my husband is? Let me tell you a quick little story here. I used to be in the travel business. I know you're going, her resume is probably 18 pages long. It probably is, but that's okay. And I had the chance to go to Madrid, Spain. We were sitting there and I thought, it's Rodney's 50th birthday. And I said, "Why don't you go with me?" So we did. My dear husband, even though I had taken 2 languages in college, and Rodney had had high school Spanish, okay, and the room wasn't ready. And so they said, "Here's a restaurant around the corner. You could have lunch while you're waiting for your room." I said, "Okay." So Rodney looks at me. He goes, Don't even try to talk." He said, "I took Spanish. I know this." I said, "Oh, okay. I'm trying to be submissive here." I thought, here I've had 6 years of Spanish, but that's okay. You go ahead. So we get into this lovely restaurant, black tie waiters. We sit down. Rodney looks at the waiter and he goes, "Como me llama?" And the waiter is quizzically looking at Rodney and he kind of shrugs. And then he comes over with another waiter. "Okay, Rodney, hola, como me llama?" 3 waiters later, and they look at Rodney and they said, "Sir, we speak English and you are asking us what your name is? We've never seen you. We have no clue what your name is." So all the time, instead of "Como se llama," which is "what's your name," my dear husband's going, "What's my name? What's my name?" Yeah, I know. We didn't try that again. No, we had no more. No, no, no more Ola, and that was the end of that in Madrid. So I better get off because I don't know unless he's been swallowed up by the new Madrid fault. He could be coming in any minute. So I'll look forward to seeing you again. Take care. Bye.
Yep, I'm in Act 3. This is just me being me. I hope you'll see God's not through with us. Yes.